What is up, you guys? Shan's here, and I'm so excited to bring you another episode of the Completely Living podcast where we talk Bible, faith, and go wherever the Holy Spirit leads us. And today we're going to be going through Job chapter 3. Now, we did chapters 1 and 2 last week, so if you haven't seen those, make sure you go back and watch them. But to give you a quick reminder of what happened, we have the accuser who was in the heavenly courts, God who's asking the accuser, "Have you seen my servant Job?" And the accuser saying, "Yes, I know him. He's very great. He's righteous because he has a hedge of protection around him." And so God responds by removing the hedge of protection from Job. And he goes through all of these really terrible things. He loses his wealth, his cattle, his home, his children. And then eventually he ends up having his health deteriorate. And we leave Job as he's scratching boils on his skin with a broken piece of pottery because he's just in so much pain, and he's sitting on the ground looking unrecognizable to his friends. And we have his three friends who come up. They are just like stunned by the sight of him, and they decide to sit down with him in silence, just be there in his presence, to be there for him. And they do that for 7 days. And that is actually one of the first examples of what it means to sit Shiva. It's kind of the first modeling of sitting Shiva. Shiva in Hebrew comes from the word that means 7. So the 7 days of sitting there in mourning. And when people are sitting Shiva, you go and you visit them and you sit there and you just be present with them. You kind of follow their lead and do whatever they need you to do in order to be there for them. So now we are into chapter 3, and we have Job speaking for the first time since all of this stuff has been happening to him, since his health has been afflicted. Now, after these 7 days, he's going to speak, and it's his first speech. I'm going to be reading it in the NLT, the New Living Translation. I'll put the words on the screen if you're able to watch, but otherwise you can follow along in whatever Bible you see fit. So we have Job chapter 3, verse 1, Job's first speech. "At last, Job spoke." And again, that's after the 7 days. "And he cursed the day of his birth." So he doesn't curse God. He curses the day of his birth. Very interesting. He said, "Let the day of my birth be erased and the night I was conceived. Let that day be turned to darkness. Let it be lost even to God on high, and let no light shine on it." So interesting so God at the beginning of the world is saying, "Let there be light." And now Job is saying, "Let it be dark," basically, like the complete opposite. Verse 5, "Let the darkness and utter gloom claim that day for its own. Let a black cloud overshadow it, and let the darkness terrify it." Let the darkness terrify what? The day, I think. "Let the night be blotted off the calendar, never again to be counted among the days of the year, and never again to appear among the months. Let the night be childless. Let it have no joy." Interesting. He's equating children to joy. So saying, let the night be childless and have no joy, which is interesting because I feel like in today's day and world, there are so many, like you can go on social media and find so many videos of where people are saying being childless is actually to be joyful. Just so different. Verse 8, "Let those who are experts at cursing, whose cursing could rouse Leviathan, curse that day." Experts at cursing. So is he almost saying like, let witches curse that day? Like those experts at cursing, because who's cursing people if they're not practicing something they're not supposed to be practicing? And then the Leviathan. Later on in Job, there's going to be a full description of what Leviathan means, or what they are, what they were. But, and that's in Job 41. If you're curious, just go read it and you'll be like, oh. But just to sum it up, it's a fire-breathing dragon, pretty much. Like that's what it looks like. When I read Job 41 and the description is given, it sounds like a fire-breathing dragon. So he's saying, like, not a snake charmer, but let those whose cursings could rouse Leviathan, okay, let them curse that day. Like they're super powerful and they curse the day I was born. Goodness gracious. Let its morning stars remain dark. Let it hope for light, but in vain. May it never see the morning light. Curse that day for failing to shut my mother's womb, for letting me be born to see all this trouble. All this trouble. Weren't you just sitting for 7 days? So he had a whole life of goodness. This is so real. This is so real. He had a whole life of goodness, a whole life of blessing and a hedge of protection. Then it's taken away. He sits for 7 days in silence. And then he's like, curse the whole day I was born. It's almost like he, like many of us, has forgotten so many of his blessings once the hardship has entered the room. He's human. He's fully human. Verse 11. Why wasn't I born dead? Why didn't I die as I came from the womb? I wonder who is he asking these questions to, because in my mind, he's asking them to God. Verse 12. Why was I laid on my mother's lap? Why did she nurse me at her breasts? Had I died at birth, I would now be at peace. I would be asleep and at rest. I would rest with the world's kings and prime ministers, whose great buildings now lie in ruins. This is interesting. This is his idea of what happens after death, is that kings and prime, after death, you get peace and rest and sleep, and it's all good. I would rest with princes rich in gold, whose palaces were filled with silver. Why wasn't I burned? Oh, I'm sorry. Why was I buried? Buried? Why wasn't I buried like a stillborn child? Like a child who never lives to see the light. I know some people say buried. I say buried. Okay. For in death, the wicked cause no trouble, and the weary are at rest. Even the captives are at ease in death, with no guards to curse them. Rich and poor are both there, and the slave is free from his master. Oh, why give light to those in misery and life to those who are bitter? They long for death and it won't come. They search for death more eagerly than for forbidden treasure. For hidden treasure. It's so interesting how this is just like that hopelessness, that deeply, deeply felt human emotion of just hopelessness. And he just doesn't even want to be born. He's asking, why was he even born? And he's doing it in such a poetic way. I understand why the book of Job is included in the poetic books of the Bible, because he's speaking very poetically and expressing himself presumably to God and asking these questions. He's coming to God with his lament and with his problems and with his anger and with his sadness, which is so real and a good reminder for us to make sure that you feel comfortable. Like, be honest. Approach God with your lament. Ask God the hard questions. Verse 22, they're filled with joy when they finally die and rejoice when they find the grave. Why is life given to those with no future? Those God has surrounded with difficulties. First of all, wait a minute. How have you decided that this hardship that you're going through means you have no future? How many of us have felt that way? When you're in the middle of the storm and you're going through something and you just don't know how you're going to get out of it and you feel that you have no future. Job is expressing that feeling. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how he's going to come out of this, but he's saying he has no future. Everything that's been taken from him at this point, he can't see past it. And it's interesting that he says those God has surrounded with difficulties. So for the beginning of the book of Job, he had a hedge of protection around him. He has been protected for a long time. He was one of the richest men in the area. And he had, cattle and servants and house and family and children and all these things. And now he's saying he's surrounded with difficulties. And that makes sense because the hedge of protection has been removed from him. And I guess he recognizes that. I cannot eat for sighing. My groans pour out like water. What I always feared has happened to me. What I dreaded has come true. So he always feared that the bad thing would happen. And this is a reminder that worrying and that fear did nothing for him. Like, it didn't prevent it from happening. It still happened. it's like that reminder of like, we're not supposed to worry. What good does worrying do? Just live your life and be happy in the joy and in the moment that you have. Because here he is, he's feared, apparently, according to him, he's feared that this would happen, the bad thing would happen. And it did. So it did him no good to not enjoy the moment. The enemy loves when you're having a good time and you're in peace. Here comes the enemy inserting fear into your peace. Like, are you really going to feel that peace? Are you really just at peace right now? Shouldn't you be afraid that something bad's going to happen? Every time you're at peace, something bad happens. Like, the honesty here with Job. Verse 26, I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest. Only trouble comes. And that is the end of chapter 3 of his lament, before we get into his friends talking to him and responding to what he's going through. But it's such an honest chapter because, mind you, he's had a great life, and now this bad thing has happened, and it all has erased. He can't see past it. He can't see his future past it. He is stuck in this hopeless place. That's what he feels, and he's expressing it. And it's a lot of us can't remember our blessings when we're in the middle of the hopeless place, when we're in the middle of the brokenness, in the middle of the storm. We can't, and sometimes we forget about all the blessings and all the wonderful things that God has done for us that proves that he is a good father. We forget those things, and we're in the middle of it, and we're just in that brokenness, sadness. But at least he's still expressing himself, and he's asking the hard questions to God. He's lamenting out loud to God. And it's a good reminder that it's okay for us to bring our questions to God. And as I read this, it reminded me of Hebrews 5, 7 through 9. I just want to read really quickly. I'm not going to read all of verse 9, but you'll get the point. Hebrews 5, verse 7. While Jesus was here on earth, he offered prayers and pleadings similar, is doing pleadings, with a loud crying in tears to the one who could rescue him from death. And God heard his prayers. So God hears our prayers because of his deep reverence for God. Even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered. In this way, God qualified him as a perfect high priest. So he learned obedience from the things he suffered. And it's not that Jesus needed to actually learn anything. We know that Jesus is God, but Jesus humbled himself, put himself in human flesh to come down to earth, dampened his understanding of things for the purposes of being here and to try to experience things as being fully human. And so as he's experiencing things as being fully human, he's learning obedience through the things he suffered. So from this section and relating it to Job, I think that we can be encouraged that we can take our prayers, our pleadings, our cries, and our tears to God. God actually hears our prayers. He hears those prayers and those tears and those cryings and those pleadings. He hears them. And then if Jesus can learn obedience from the things he suffered, we can learn something from our suffering, from our brokenness. Something good can come out of it. From our battle and our brokenness, we build our testimony. Our ministry is created through the things that we go through to be able to testify to how God brings us through them and how God can bring other people through similar situations. Something I thought of when I was reading this chapter, just such a powerful lament, a poetry reading of his feelings and how Job is dealing with all these hardships that he's going through. And it's so honest. And I think a lot of us can relate to these feelings that he's having, these hopeless feelings, these why was I even born? Why am I going through this? I have no future kind of feelings. But we can rest assured that knowing that even though Job is going through just terrible, devastating things, that there is a story here. It doesn't end in Job chapter 3. There are more chapters to this story. So we have to go through and see what we gather from this. But that's where we're going to stop today, at Job's lament, at his honesty, at his prayer to God. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to come back next week, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the things, anything, comment, let me know what you think about this chapter in particular. And I just want to thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited because today marks a milestone of having 900 subscribers on this channel. I'm very thankful for it. And I'm so appreciative of each and every one of you who is here. I thank God that you are here. I hope that you are gaining something from this. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.